Okay, well, we might as well get this presentation started. Thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. I am Cindy Erickson, tour coordinator with West World Tours, and I'll be facilitating the presentation this evening. Joining me to tell you all about the great sites you're going to enjoy on our tour to the Black Hills is tour director Fred Chriest. Fred, welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Before I turn the presentation over to Fred, I have a couple of items to discuss. Number one is our questions. We do encourage you to ask questions at any time throughout the presentation. And that being said, everyone has been muted. So please type your question into the Q&A box that's located on your screen. And you can, if you've joined us on Facebook, you can type your comment into the comment section. And we welcome your questions, as I said, at any time, and we will answer as many as we can at the end of our presentation. And here's a quick lineup of our upcoming virtual presentations. All of them are going to be held at 7:00 p.m. Central Standard Time. On April 27th, we will learn more about our women explorers and our tours that we are offering in 2022, this upcoming summer. We're traveling to Newfoundland and Ireland, and in the fall, we'll be traveling to Portugal and Spain. And then on May 4th, we're going to have our presentation on Churchill, and our tour director, Coral, will be joining us that evening. And if you've missed any of our previous live presentations, we have a recorded version available for viewing on our website at WestWorldTours.com. And if you'd like to receive invites to future presentations, as well as timely information on new tours, we recommend you follow us on Facebook and sign up also to our email newsletter. You won't be inundated with emails, and you can unsubscribe at any time. There may be a few more than normal right now as we're keeping everybody up to date on our virtual presentation series. So I'm going to launch a poll onto your screen right away, asking you to let us know if you would like to receive our email newsletter. And I will get that launched here for you and give everybody an opportunity to let us know. If you have traveled with us before, that's great. You can let us know that as well. Pardon me. You can sign up for the West World Tours newsletter or the Women Explorers newsletter. And if you're already receiving it, you can let us know that as well. Okay, it looks like everybody's had an opportunity. So thank you very much for participating in that. Let's move forward here a little bit. Okay, so a little bit about West World Tours. We are Western Canada's premier tour company, and we've been serving Canadians from coast to coast with escorted travel throughout North America and around the world since 2000. Presenting quality components, including modern, comfortable coaches, professional tour directors like Fred, experienced, courteous drivers, baggage handling, and excellent accommodations. We take in all the important sites and attractions and include several meals throughout our tours. Thousands of passengers have traveled with us and chosen our first-class style of touring, enjoying great value, security, and stress-free environment, all while making new friendships along the way. We know our tour directors enjoy getting to know you while on tour and love to see familiar faces. And speaking of familiar faces, I'm going to launch our second poll onto the screen here, asking if you have traveled with us before or not. We always like to know that. So I'm going to give you all an opportunity to respond to that as well. So if you haven't traveled with us before, we certainly look forward to welcoming you aboard. And if you have traveled with us before, we are excited to see your familiar faces on board with us again. Oh, let's see, it looks like about 42% viewing this evening have traveled with us. And about 58% obviously have not traveled with us. So thank you everybody for joining us this evening. I hope you are having a nice weather-wise evening as compared to what's happening in the southeast part of our province this evening. So our Black Hills and Medora tour. You can dust off your boots and climb aboard our Wild West adventure through the Dakotas on our tour to the Black Hills and Medora. There are plenty of things to see and do in the Black Hills and the Badlands, from monuments and wildlife to incredible landscapes. You'll find granite spires, fresh mountain lakes, and thousands of breathtaking views. You'll see Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse Memorial. You'll discover Wild West legends in Deadwood and attend the greatest show in the West at the Medora Musical. Experience the cowboy chicaneries at the Chuck Wagon Dinner and Show in Fort Hayes, and learn the history of the bison and the culture of Native Americans as you explore Tatanka, the story of the bison, which was founded by actor Kevin Costner. And really, who doesn't love a pitchfork fondue? So at this point, everybody, I am very pleased to introduce you to Fred Chriest. Fred's first tour with Wes World Tours was in the summer of 2000 on a Blue Jays tour. And he continued casually until retiring from teaching in 2006 and has become a familiar and popular tour director to many Wes World travelers ever since. Fred has experienced a lot of firsts with Wes World Tours. He was the tour director on board for our first President's Tour, our first tour to New York City, and the first time Wes World Tours went to Costa Rica. So welcome, Fred, and thank you again for joining us tonight. And we are ready to hear all about our tour to the Black Hills and Medora. So take it away.
Well, thank you, Cindy. It's great to be talking about touring and sharing our tour packages with people across the prairies. I'm pleased to share an overview of the Black Hills and Medora tour. If we take a look at the slide that shows our route, we start the tour in Saskatoon and pick up passengers as we head to the US border. And I just want to make note that currently you do not need a negative COVID-19 test to cross the Canada-US border either way. However, we'll keep our eye on that. That can easily change. Once we cross the border, we make a quick stop in Williston for lunch, and then our first night's stay is in Medora. Now, as you take a look at the highlights of our tour on the next slide, I'd like to share with you some thoughts on motor coach touring with Wes World Tours. This is a compact, short tour, and it's an excellent introduction for first-time motor coach travelers. Travelers discover that motor coach touring is safe, comfortable, and informative. One of the best ways to get to see the landscape of the area you're going through. Now, an important thing to note is all of our tour directors are certified in first aid and CPR, including use of an AED or automatic external defibrillator, which we carry on all of our tours. As mentioned, we have modern, comfortable coaches, experienced and courteous drivers, and we look after all of your luggage handling to and from the coach. We provide excellent accommodation, and as a result, a very stress-free way to travel. Our Black Hills tour gives you a glimpse of the Wild West in the Black Hills area, as well as attractions that have drawn tourists to this area for decades. We also have an opportunity to examine the unique geologic formations, the flora, and the fauna that the early settlers of the region encountered. And as an added bonus, as you see in the bottom of our highlights tour, all breakfasts and dinners are included in our tour. Now, as we take a look at our first day of touring, we are traveling to the city of Medora, North Dakota. Along the way, you will be kept informed about the communities we pass through, and you'll have a chance to participate in various activities to make the journey more acceptable and more enjoyable. Medora was founded in 1883 by the Marquis de Moors and named the city Medora in honor of his wife. Now, after checking into our hotel, we will enjoy a pitchfork fondue, and you can see that pictured in the slides. Here, mouth-watering ribeye steaks are loaded onto pitchforks, and then they're done to perfection in large vats of canola oil, and then served up with all the fixings for an unforgettable outdoor meal overlooking the Dakota Badlands. Now, day one continues on the next slide as we head down to the Medora Musical. The modern day Medora Musical started in 1965 and is dedicated to Theodore Roosevelt's time in the North Dakota Badlands and to the spirit of the Old West. The musical takes place in the Burning Hills Amphitheater. Now, the Burning Hills Amphitheater gets its name from the fact that underground coal layers are often ignited by lightning, and these coal layers can burn for decades, hence the Burning Hills. Now, this is an outdoor venue, as you can see, and we suggest that when we head out there, and when you head out there, you take along a jacket, maybe even a blanket, because once the sun goes down, it can get a little chilly. Now, this is a variety show. It includes singing, dancing, roping tricks, yodeling, and then there are usually two main acts that vary during the summer season. Moving on to day 2, we have an opportunity to explore the area around Medora. In the morning, we will take a drive through the North Dakota Badlands, pictured in the bottom photos on your screen. And as we drive through this area, we'll discuss the geologic and natural history of the area, including learning about prairie dogs and the herds of wild bison and horses that roam the area. Lunch in Medora is a chance to explore the local shops and attractions before boarding the motor coach and heading to Deadwood for our 4-day stay at the historic Mineral Palace. Now, in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see a picture of the restored Chateau d'Amour that we will have gone through earlier in the day. It's a 29-room hunting lodge called the Chateau d'Amours by the locals, and we'll find out a little bit about its tragic and maybe joyous history. Both are combined in the history of the Chateau d'Amours. Our first night in Deadwood is a free evening where you'll have supper at the Mineral Palace, and then explore Deadwood, where you can watch reenactments of Main Street gunfighter shootouts or the shooting of Wild Bill Hickok inside Saloon Number 10. Moving on to day 3, we focus our attention on the city of Deadwood. We take a great city tour that includes Mount Moriah Cemetery, Deadwood's Boot Hill, where the headstones tell the history of the area, including stories of the gold rush, stories about Calamity Jane, her tombstone is pictured here in the upper left-hand corner, as well as William Butler or Wild Bill Hickok. And then we also hear the unique story of the Chinese workers brought into this area and how they had to be accommodated in the cemetery or Boot Hill. We'll also tour downtown, where we'll discuss Adams House, pictured on the lower right, the historic downtown, including Saloon Number 10, where Wild Bill was shot in the back by Jack McCall, and the modern story of gaming in Deadwood. Now, if you listen carefully, you may find some stories about the oldest profession that still existed in the brothels on downtown Deadwood as early as, or as late as, the 1970s. In the afternoon, we will take a visit to Tatanka, which is shown on our next slide. Tatanka is the story of the North American bison. As mentioned earlier, this site was created by Kevin Costner, and it honors the Lakota people, the native residents of the Black Hills when the Europeans first came there. We will learn how the bison provided food, shelter, clothing, tools, and much more to the native people of the land. The site is also home to larger-than-life bronze statues, which depict 3 Lakota horseback riders chasing 14 bison toward a bison or buffalo jump. And you can see that in the photos there. Once they drove the animals to this bison jump, many went over the jump, were killed or dying once they hit the bottom, and then the Lakota people were there to harvest all the things they needed from the bison. Once we finish at Tatanka, the rest of the day is free time to explore Deadwood, take in a free slot tournament at the Mineral Palace, or just relax after a long day of touring. Moving on to day 4, we give you the morning as an opportunity to sleep in, if you so desire, to continue exploring Deadwood, or perhaps enter another free slot tournament at the Mineral Palace. We then depart Rapid City to enjoy the area attractions around Rapid City. First attraction that we'll visit is shown on the photo on the left, and this is the Reptile Gardens. It's home to the Reptile Zoo, and in the zoo you'll see tortoises, snakes, alligators, tropical birds, and stunning botanical gardens and beautiful minerals displayed throughout the gardens. There are numerous wildlife shows that you can take part in as we visit the site. Now, this will be our lunch stop, so we encourage you to take an opportunity to have lunch on your own from the snack shack that's at the Reptile Gardens. Great food, excellent ice cream, and great burgers there. Then from there, we move on to Bear Country, pardon me. Bear Country is a must-see attraction in the Black Hills. We will take a leisurely 5-kilometer drive in our motor coach through natural enclosures and enter the Bighorn and Dall sheep enclosures, view Rocky Mountain goats, deer, reindeer and elk, buffalo, cougars and bobcats, and of course, black bears, which come in all sorts of colors, not just black. So when we get there, people often say, well, what are those brown bears or those ones that are more multicolor? They're all black bears by name, but not by color. Then after the drive-through, you'll have time to take a wildlife walk in the area around the gift shop, where you can view these animal offsprings in a more closer setting. You can also view smaller animals, and they always have some cuddly baby bears. Of course, you don't get to cuddle them. And as I mentioned, they're around the gift shop, so I guess your visit isn't complete until you see the gift shop there. We will then end the day with a visit to Fort Hayes. And Fort Hayes is the home to many of the prop buildings used in Kevin Costner's movie, Dances with Wolves. And in this slide, the upper right and left and lower left, you can see some of the buildings that are there. Now, here you can see craftsmen who are working with their hands to make everything from handmade tools, ropes, bricks, the tin plates that you'll eat your dinner on, and knives. And speaking of dinner, you can see it pictured in the bottom right-hand corner. Dinner is a hearty chuck wagon supper, followed by a great live musical variety show featuring the Fort Hayes Wranglers. And then it's off to Deadwood for the evening. Day 5 starts off with a very scenic drive through the Black Hills. And on this drive, we have some amazing photo stops on our way to Mount Rushmore National Memorial. Now, Mount Rushmore National Memorial is a government-funded project that began in 1927 to promote tourism in South Dakota. Here you'll learn about Rushmore's construction, as well about its strange and scandalous history. It was built on Native American land that was taken away from them and was sculpted by a man with ties to the KKK. Now, you can see the faces in the center there. Do you know their names? If not, maybe you'd better look them up, just in case there's a test on this part of the tour. Then we will stop for lunch in the community of Hill City. Now, this community of about 1,000 people is home to many local art galleries and unique boutique shops. On the lower left-hand side of the screen, you'll see an interesting sculpture on the main street. It's made up of all sorts of scrap metal pieces that have been welded together in the form of a horse. Once we leave Hill City, we'll make the short drive to the Crazy Horse Memorial. This mountain monument is still under construction, and it's built on private land, and it is all funded through private funding. It depicts the Lakota warrior Crazy Horse riding a horse and pointing to his tribal lands, which are the lands that we now know as the Black Hills. Started in 1948, construction continues as funding permits. And we have been there at times when they've done some blasting. And if we're fortunate enough to be there when that happens this year, you'll get some amazing pictures. Now, if the blasting isn't occurring, you still have some wonderful attractions to look at the site. They have an amazing visitors center, and their cultural center provides visitors with details about the history of the monument and glimpses into the rich Lakota culture of the Black Hills. We return to Deadwood for a farewell supper, and at this farewell supper, we encourage folks to reminisce about the travels that they've had, to exchange names and phone numbers and contact information with their new friends, and basically have a chance to talk about all of the experiences they've had on this tour. The next day, of course, it's up bright and early and on our way back home.
Sorry, I had myself muted there. I didn't want to dare interrupt you. You know, I have to say, I just love the Deadwood and the Black Hills and South Dakota area, Rapid City. It's such a great comfort place. I find it. It's just a real relaxing, interesting area to go and visit. And it's beautiful as well. The scenery, the landscape. It's one of my favorite places to go and spend some time for sure. So thank you, Fred, for sharing your knowledge of our Black Hills tour with everyone. And we're going to see if we've got some questions we can get to and hopefully answer a few questions. Let's just have a quick look here. Oh, Grace says she cannot see the slides. I hope that everybody else has been able to see the slides. Grace, I'm not sure what happened, but I'm hoping that you have been able to see the slides, everybody. We have Valinda saying hi from the West Kootenays in BC. She's been watching us this evening. Thank you, Valinda, for letting us know that. Oh, yeah, we have a question here from Marilyn. What is the time of year for this trip? Very good question. I think that's something that we have forgot to mention. This tour goes once this summer. It departs July 17th and returns on the 22nd. As Fred mentioned, it is a short tour, but full of interesting stops and attractions, and really a great introduction, as Fred also said, into motor coach touring. So Marilyn, thank you for asking that question. Oh, good. And Valinda is letting me know that she was able to see our slides. So I was a little concerned that we didn't have any pictures and all they had was you and I to look at, Fred. That would not have been great. But okay, so I'm not sure if there's any more questions. I know Fred did a little bit of research, like he mentioned, about crossing the border, and it's going to be a lot easier with no testing required going down into the US or coming back when you're crossing at the land border. And we don't anticipate that will change, but obviously we will monitor that for sure.
Maybe on an interesting note,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that we always encourage folks to do when we take these tours is to take a variety of clothing with them as we go on the tour. People often ask when I call them prior to going on the tour, what shall I take? What should I pack? What's the weather like?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Black Hills is very much like the weather in Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba. If you don't like it, wait 5 minutes and it will change. Because we're in the Black Hills and at elevation, we tend to be a little cooler there than when we head down to the area around Rapid City. We have been in the reptile gardens when it's been warm and sunny, and in the 5-minute drive to get to bear country, we've had to tuck the motor coach under the entrance to protect it from the raging hailstorm that lasts for 10 or 15 minutes. So what do you take? Well, dress in layers. Have a light layer to wear if it's warm, add layers if it gets cool, and something to keep you dry if it's pouring out there.
Yes, that's one thing that we can't control or predict accurately is the weather, not even the weatherman. Yes, and of course, a passport is required for sure on this tour. As we are crossing the border, you definitely are required to have a passport. And, you know, Fred, I'm really glad that you mentioned of calling. And I'm not sure if the people that have not traveled with us before would know that our tour directors always call our passengers and our guests prior to the tour start date to, you know, introduce themselves to their traveling companions and answer any questions that they might have, and just go over their documents with them, make sure they have all the necessary documents, and talk about things like passports and money, and you know, using your cell phone and all kinds of things. They're a wealth of information, and they're more than willing to share it with all. So we have the greatest tour directors, I have to say. But there's one. Kieran is asking, speaking of being prepared for a variety of weather, how much luggage are we allowed? That's a great question, Karen. Thanks for asking. You are allowed one checked bag weighing no more than 50 pounds. And I must say, if you need more than 50 pounds on a 6-day tour, you've got a lot of clothes. Yeah. But no, it's one check bag, no more than 50 pounds. And you can take one carry-on on the coach with you. Obviously not the same size as airlines, because the overhead bins on a coach are not as large as the overhead bins on an aircraft. Mostly it's just like a day pack that you would have with any snacks or water bottle and that sort of thing. Things that you might need throughout the day.
Also, we always remind folks in our pre-tour phone call that you have to make sure you've got your camera with you. And something that some people forget to pack are their chargers for cameras and cell phones and so on. The other thing that I like to do when I make my pre-call is I like to make sure I've got the cell phone number of folks that are traveling with us, and I make sure they have mine. That way, if something happens either on the way to the pickup spot from either end, or while we're touring, we can get in touch with one another and make sure everything is fine and keep everybody on track.
Yes, it's very important. I agree. Yes. And it's good to have those cell phone numbers for sure. Lots of times, you know, somebody can get a little bit behind or get separated from the group, and it's always great to have that cell phone number so you can reconnect for sure. Let's see. It says, do you need to be fully vaccinated? Yes, you do need to be fully vaccinated on this tour, and all of our tours, actually. It is mandatory. And how many people can go on this tour? A maximum of 50. And then it would be with plus our tour director and our driver. So there'll be 52 maximum. And our coach is generally a 56 passenger coach. So there's always a little bit of extra room. And we do rotate seating. Now during COVID and because of COVID, it would likely be once a day that we would do the seat rotation at this point. Fred, any comments on that? One thing I can say is our tour directors make your tour so exciting. Like I said, they're full of tidbits of information and about the areas, like Fred said, that you're traveling through, about the geology. They've got great games. They keep you entertained when you're on the coach. And our coach usually stops every 2 to 2.5, 3 hours for a coffee break or a photo stop or lunch, or, you know, it isn't that you're sitting on a coach all day. So that's important to know as well.
And it's also important to remember that you may say, well, in 6 days, if I only move seats once, am I going to be stuck in the back of that coach forever? On shorter tours, rather than just rotating one seat, we sometimes will rotate 2 or 3 seats at a time, which enables you to get a different spot on the coach so that the one person or one couple doesn't have the front seat all the time. And the other opportunity it provides you with is a chance to get to know your fellow travelers as you look across the aisle and see somebody different and start to share some information and make a new friend along the way.
Absolutely. That's a very good point, Fred. Thank you for that.
Now, another thing to mention is As much as possible, the tour directors like to carry bottled water on the coaches so that folks have an opportunity to have that water, something to drink. If you don't take the advantage of the water we have, pack a couple of bottles of water with you so you can hydrate yourself during the day. And hydration is important, just as important as getting up, moving about, and having that lunch break in the middle of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it is a fabulous way to travel. It's so relaxing. You just sit back in the big panoramic windows and watch the scenery go by, roll by, and you're entertained. Like it's a fun way to travel and meet new people as well. So I see if we have any more questions here. I think we've got all of our questions, Fred. So at this point, everybody, I am just going to say thank you so much for joining us this evening. And Fred, thank you as well for joining us this evening. We greatly appreciate your knowledge and your time. And we will be following up with everybody that registered for our presentation this evening. And you will get a link via email with all the details for this tour. And yeah, keep a watch out for that. It'll generally come out tomorrow. And yeah, if you have any questions, by all means, you can reach out to us at information@westworldtours.com. Please follow us on Facebook. We've got some great posts on there, and it's a great way to find out what's new and what's happening at West World Tours. Our tour is getting ready to depart for Victoria, I think next week, and there's going to be some great posts coming up live, probably from on tour. So keep an eye out for that. And as well, contact your local travel agent. They're a wealth of knowledge as well. You can reach out to them as well. So everybody, if we have no more questions, again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And hopefully we will see you on the 27th of April for our Women Explorers evening.